Thank you very much. The gentleman's time has expired, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas 11th District for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last time you guys were here, and I appreciate you being here, we highlighted the need for rural Americans to have, and in fact, Chairwoman, you said, I think if I'm right on this quote, everyone, everywhere. So, and I couldn't agree with that more. However, when looking at the proposed and final rules, we do have serious concerns about those, and the heavy-handed approach, the control over the internet service providers. Recently, when the FCC finalized its new digital equity rules, rather than taking a narrow approach, I think you guys have taken a more expansive approach and invasive approach that would micromanage nearly every aspect of how internet service providers function. And so what I'd like to ask first off is, Chairwoman, you exempt the Biden administration's Broadband Equity and Access Deployment, the BEAD program, as well as the Universal Service Fund program from your digital discrimination rules. And it appears to be a two-tiered system. Why is that?
On the contrary, we just made sure that there's a legal presumption that if they're following the universal service policies, they're following the BEAD rules, that we assume that they are complying with the digital discrimination rules. We just flipped a legal presumption because we thought, at the behest of carriers, that we would make it easier for them to
Would the carriers agree with you on this?
Absolutely.
They would?
They absolutely supported it. My colleagues all supported it, too.
Commissioner Carr, anything on that?
No, look, I think it's really telling that at the last minute, the Biden administration secured effectively an exemption from the very same digital equity rules that they encouraged the FCC to adopt. And why is that? Is that because the Biden administration wants to engage in digital discrimination? Does it not believe in digital equity? Of course not. Really what's going on here is the Biden administration is giving away the game. It knows that these are heavy-handed rules. It knows these are going to depress investment and innovation, and they have a signature initiative, BEAD, Internet for All, that they can't afford to fail. And so they're trying to maximize the odds of its success by excluding themselves from the rules. Meanwhile, all of the providers and all of the programs are stuck complying with them. I think we should have a level playing field. If the Biden administration doesn't want those rules to apply to its own program, it shouldn't apply to any program.
If I could say really quickly, Congressman.
I got to move on.
Yep.
Let's talk national, sorry about that. You guys, thank you for your service. Let's talk national security and Title II. This committee, Congress will act in the nature of protecting our national security. So I'm interested in the national proposed rulemaking and what you think about, how is it needed for national security purposes? You mentioned this a little bit, but I'm going to give you a minute to expand that. I have one final question for the chairwoman.
Yep. Thank you, Congressman, for your work on this. Thanks for your public service here and previously. I think you know these issues of national security very well. Look, there is no gap in national security that Title II would fill. In fact, DHS is the sector-specific lead when it comes to security issues in the communications space. They have a lot of authorities. CISA has a lot of authorities. If there happened to be an issue in our networks, then we should come to Congress today. And Congress should fast-track today a bill. The idea that we're going to sit here and look at some foreign actor hijacking things in our broadband network and let it to continue until we get around to doing Title II and that we haven't done anything about it in 3 years, it would be incredible if that was true. Yeah. In fact, it's not credible. I think what's going on here, again, is we're just sort of grasping at straws at new justifications to support Title II itself.
It's not just this industry, it's every industry, every committee hearing we have here. We're talking about overreach, we're talking about overregulation, we're talking about heavy-handed approach. I'll change gears, focus on something that, Chairwoman, thank you for your comments about 5 years ago when you, and I know we don't always remember what we say, but
5 years ago, my God.
I think you'll remember this one
Okay.
because you tweeted out in 2018 under the Trump administration, you said, it's time for transparency. The FCC needs to publish a calendar that lets our wireless economy plan for the future by describing just what spectrum bands will be auctioned and when. This is simple. There's no good reason to do it. Has there been, since you've been commissioner, has there been a calendar proposed by any of the commissioners to you?
Well, I think you know that this committee passed the Ray Baums Act a while ago, which requires us on an annualized basis to produce a calendar.
Do you currently have a calendar?
Yeah, on an annualized basis, we produce a calendar. But to be very clear, this agency no longer has spectrum auction authority, so we can't actually act and produce an auction,
But
plan
you can
for an auction, or
certainly,
make it happen.
you can certainly provide, so I know Commissioner Carr provided a calendar, 2021, 2022, 2023.
So how about
Do
this?
you
We'll
have,
sit here right now and I'll tell you what I'd like to do if you give
Madam-
me auction authority back.
Madam Chair, do you have a calendar, and can you share that with us?
Yeah, we'll show you the calendar we
Does
produced
it have
under the Ray
auction,
Baums
does it have
Act.
does it have the auction bands that will be auctioned off?
See, under the Ray Baums Act, we produce an annual calendar at the request of this committee, but because we don't have auction authority, I can't plan for auctions. It would be using appropriated funds for things for which we're not authorized.
If we're going to compete with China, we need to know what the plan
I
is. We need to
totally-
see a calendar, and we need to see
totally
which
agree with
bands
you.
and which timeframes. That's the important thing.
So how about
When?
this? If I could make it up right now, I'd tell you this. You give me my authority back, I have a bunch of bands that are sitting in the closet in the FCC. In the AWS-3 bands, the 600 megahertz
I
bands,
don't-
the 700 megahertz bands, the 800 megahertz bands, and I've got a proceeding in the upper portion of the 12 gigahertz
You can help us by
band.
talking to the
The
president about this.
gentleman's
Our
time has
Thank you.
expired.